Hash info. I'm calling on all hashies to do me a solid worldwide. If you could please, um, you know, find it in your hearts. I'm offering you 1,000 blessings each. Alright, and these blessings are of love and joy, wisdom. I need everybody to watch this video. If you could just listen to it like a podcast, keep it in the background. It's important that this year we vote PC. Alright? This is CARNEY himself. Somehow he is the unelected Prime Minister of Canada. I can't even swallow that. We have the Manitoba flag sits right here. Tiggs really wants you guys to vote for Pierre. Alright? Here's the Saskatchewan flag. I believe it looks like the Jamaican flag. I could be wrong. And then over here's the BC one. That one's the BC with the yellow thing there, I can tell. Come on, y'all. We can do it this one time, right? This 420, I'm counting on everyone to vote PC.
Bonsoir tout le monde. I'd like to begin by thanking the premiers for joining me for today's First Minister meeting, and also for the work that they have been doing for Canada. Canadians have become more united than ever before, and they rightly expect their governments to work together to advance a positive, action-oriented agenda to build one Canadian economy.
And I'll have you know that I'm sick to my stomach that people like can enter politics and be just thrown right in because of who they are. Not elected by the people that's wrong. This is wrong what's happened. So I wonder if this has been a thing, right? Was this a thing this whole time? Was this part of the thing? I need people out there who are good men and women to understand that in sports, there are things we refer to as turning points. We have the greatest turning point I'll get to as a Canadian, and as North Americans, we know as, and probably even in the Norwegians and the Finns, you all know this as the TSN turning point. I hope that when Pierre is elected, that we can have some peace and prosperity as Canadians across the board. Not just, I was going to say here in Winnipeg, I hope it's across the board. From BC to Newfoundland, PEI, Labrador, and Scotias, and George, like wherever, Prince George. You want to get up, way up there, or way down low, like there's a place I can't think of right now. It's on the board. Emerson. Emerson is way down low, and you got Prince George and all those other places up Dawson's Creek and stuff. Yes. The libs out, yes. Anybody has a comment or a shout out you would like? All you have to do is say something good about the PCs, preferably Pierre, right? Something that they're wanting to change, from CARNEY and his clown-like attitude that I can't stand, right? As a Canadian, I can voice my opinion very loudly and very clear. I don't like Carney. I think he's going to be the worst person for Canada. He's shown this in many ways in many other countries. Every time he leaves there, it seems like that country just crumbles, crumbles down. So he left then. He left, in I think 2008, 2010. We have to look up some facts about him in a bit, but right now, I'm distraught that I have 44 days, 45 days till 420. You know what I mean? That's going to require a lot of papers, bud. So we got these tariff wars going on. I'm asking all Americans just to send me boxes of papes. You know what I mean? Let's go. No, I'm kidding. I don't need nothing from America. I love America. I'd love your blessings. Maybe a shout out and a share on this video. Drop a few likes here and there. Comment. That's all I ask from America. I don't want American money. I don't need American jewels. I don't need American gold. I don't need diamonds or jewels or nothing like that. I just would like a shout out on your YouTube America channels. America. Thank you, America. I know there's really cool hashies out there watching, and I'm more concerned about everybody. If he gets in, he's going to put more tariffs on you guys, making it harder for the smaller American. I want Pierre. Pierre wants to work with America. America. So let's get Pierre in. Let's get some good business decisions going between two countries to make two strong nations who are very hindered and hurt right now, to help them and to heal them, and to let's make Canada and let's make North America great again. Right? We can. Why is that a bad slogan? Forget anything else. That's a good thing. If anyone doesn't want that for North America, you're a bad person. I don't wish any problems for anyone. I want China to be a good country who, supports us with raw, like, steel and whatever it is that our country needs. China is an old country. Their factories are ancient. They have technology and education systems that we still don't have in place. They're ahead of us. So we could learn a lot from China. Why we refuse to kind of shows like they want to keep us down. Who's us? I don't know. Pierre doesn't want to keep us down, so let's get Pierre in. Carbon tax was created, you can tell, to keep most Canadians down. If the carbon tax and all these Paris Accord things that Trump got rid of, if all of these were not in place, we would have been able to strive and thrive. We're not going to start our own nuclear plant here in Winnipeg tomorrow, like me and three buddies, because there's no Paris Accord or no. Do you get what I'm saying? No green team running around going, "Oh, you can't use bug spray on your legs, bro." Like, I'm talking about real pollution on the highest level. How many jumbo jets does your company have? How many flights a day does your company fly? What is that stuff in the sky I see everywhere?
And that Canadian economy to be the strongest in the G7.
What do I dislike about Carney? Carney is for carbon tax. Carney was all for carbon tax, and because all of Canada is now understanding what carbon tax actually means for us, while other countries don't have these imposed taxes that only a few corporations take the money for, right? They're getting tax rebates. They're buying and backdooring and loopholing 3 different ways from Sunday. I don't want to even get into how many ways. It's so bad. We have to get rid and just simply charge them. Like I was going to get to, if you have 99 planes, jumbo jets, and you fly 99 flights a day, I want 99% of the of half, like I want 50%, I should say, of all the money you make, all of it, to put towards taxes, and uh, you're gonna pay an environmental fee because we have to then go in and figure out how to clean up your mess. Every year you do that pollution, we have to make more trees to suck up and soak up all that junk, and it's going to kill off a bunch of stuff. We have to 10 times plant because it's not going to be ready right away. We have to be, every time there's a polluter on the highest level, industrial complex level, we have to make sure that we 10 times whatever they're paying right now, because it's apparently not enough and they're still making hand over fist money. Now, if these are struggling companies that are polluting, then we simply dismantle and tell them you're no longer able to operate because it's not feasible. Number one, you're asking for grants and things that aren't putting towards actual change, actual scientific improvements in technology. It's the same droning crap for 30 years your uncle owns, and you're still funding it through the back door. You're fired. You wait and see what's coming. Doge is coming to Canada. He will not be prime minister. We will have our own department here in Canada that will oversee all funds, all grants in the last 50 to 100 years. And we're going to check and see where it's been going. I'm very, very mad. And a lot of people need to understand no more backdooring is going to happen anywhere. We're draining the swamps. It's too late now. Vote PC if you want to know where your money goes from now on, because you had no clue for the last 40 years. Whatever you've been around paying into it, you ain't got a clue where your money's been going. And it's a drastic amount of money they funneled somewhere.
Il nous faut une seule économie canadienne, pas 13. La guerre commerciale déclenchée par les États-Unis nous a démontré que les Canadiens et Canadiennes sont prêts à s'attaquer aux obstacles qui menacent notre économie. Reconnaissant l'impact sur les travailleurs et les entreprises, nous avons annoncé aujourd'hui de l'aide pour nos travailleurs et nos entreprises. So what we announced today, earlier today, in order to support Canadian workers, we will temporarily waive the 1-week employment insurance waiting period. So in other words, if people are displaced because of the tariff situation, they immediately can receive unemployment insurance. To make it so that workers don't have to exhaust any severance pay before collecting EI, we will remove that restriction. We'll also make it easier to access EI, and I can explain the technicalities around that if you're interested, but trust me, that's what's going to happen. It's important. To support Canadian businesses, we will...
It's important because he's saying there's going to be an overflow of people that need it. Now that falls on the Liberal government that created this problem. They say Justin Trudeau and CARNEY are businessmen. And this is the state of Canada. And did Trudeau not have Carney's ear, Carbon Carney's ear this whole time? I don't know. I got questions, guys. So we're going to make it look easy to vote PC this year. And I'll explain why. NDP is not fit for prime ministerial government. They're not fit to lead anything but some sheep. And I say some because there's going to be very few NDP people right away. They're very upset with the NDP. Most people will switch to PCs, Pierre Poilievre, and the Conservative Party. They're by far the best choice. And Liberals have never been a good choice to vote for. You can tell. Just look at the state of Canada. Look at the Liberals' track record of how long they've been in power, and look at the state of Canadians' lives right now because of, again, Liberals in power. So if you want to talk about why someone should vote PC, they've been in power far too long and done nothing, but the proof is in. Look at 2020. Look at the way the Liberals were treating Canadians across the country.
Temporarily allow them
I say no more.
to defer corporate income tax payments and GST and HST remittances. So this is a way to boost their liquidity. We'll also deploy a new financing facility, which the Minister of Finance, I'm going to blame him, has decided to call the Large Enterprise Economic and National Security Facility. And again, this will provide liquidity support. And we will also provide more funding for regional development agencies. These measures as a whole will help our workers, help keep our businesses running, and protect our economy during this phase of the trade war. Now, we briefed premiers on this. We had an exchange of views on this.
Roughly, let's say, 60%, maybe 65, 66, 68% of Canadians right now guaranteed are voting PC. So that's going to leave the NDP with what, 20, 12, maybe 5, 8%, and then somewhere in between there, CARNEY's going to get 5, 10, or 15%. So the Liberals may be in third place, but NDP is damaged goods, so we'll see. They both could be in like the 5% range, tied for second, tied for third. Really, at that point, they're tied for last of the last. The Green Party may pull ahead of them with 3 or 4, 6%. You know what I mean? It's very possible. So the Green Party is very weak, but I mean, when you look at the state of the Liberal Party, I think you're looking at between 0, 1 to 5% of the vote this year, and PCs will dominate full 68%, low 70s, high 70s, probably. Probably.
Situation with the United States, the tariff measures announced by China, and then the meeting turned to its focus, which was nation building. And that is the focus of First Ministers. It is nation building. Because together we can give ourselves more than any foreign government can ever take away. We can more than offset the effects of any U.S. tariffs by eliminating internal trade barriers alone. Removing barriers to the free movement of workers and goods and services would increase the size of our economy. This is an updated figure, by $250 billion. So that's the equivalent of more than $6,000 for every single Canadian. Il est grand temps de bâtir des choses que nous n'avons jamais imaginées à une vitesse que nous avons jamais vue. Il faut s'unir pour bâtir le pays le plus fort, le plus juste et le plus libre du monde. First Ministers agreed today, and again I thank them for this, we agreed today to develop a national trade and energy corridor strategy. Yeah, for transportation, for energy, for critical minerals, and digital connectivity. And so the agreement is to turn what has been a concept into a reality that will diversify and strengthen our economy. And to make that concrete, the federal government, my government, is acting now in several ways. Let me begin by saying that we are committing to remove all exemptions, all federal exemptions under the Canada Free Trade Agreement. We're introducing a new First Mile Fund to provide capital to build transmission and transportation networks to link extraction sites to existing rail and road networks. In other words, if you think of a critical minerals project or something that's away from an existing network, linking them in can be decisive on the economics and whether they get built. We are creating a one-window approval process. We are committing to table legislation by the 1st of July for goods to travel across the country barrier-free or free of barriers of federal barriers. So we're combing through all federal legislation for those barriers. We intend to, from a federal level, to have free trade by Canada Day. We are going to remove any labor mobility restrictions for federally regulated professions.
What?
We will going to remove any labor mobility restrictions for federally regulated professions. We will eliminate federal duplicative requirements by recognizing provincial assessments for major projects. This is so-called mutual recognition. So one project, one review. And we will work with the provinces and other stakeholders, Indigenous groups, to identify projects of national significance and accelerate the time frame to build them. And I'm proud to highlight a few of the major projects that the federal government, again, to make these words real, what we've moved on today to advance. The Cedar LNG and LNG Canada in British Columbia. Investments in Port of Churchill in northern Manitoba. To ensure Indigenous participation, or to promote Indigenous participation, facilitate Indigenous participation, we're expanding the Indigenous Loan Guarantee Facility to $10 billion. That's doubling. And what this does is it unlocks capital for First Nations, Inuit, and Métis to invest in equity of projects. In other words, to become owners of, co-owners of projects, in order for those projects to be built quickly and sustainably. We will keep working with our provincial partners to build out national interest projects that cross interprovincial boundaries so they can be prioritized and accelerate. One project, one review. It's time to build. Now, some examples of potential future projects, and this is not an exhaustive list, but you look to the Ring of Fire in Ontario in partnership with Indigenous peoples. Ports like Grays Bay in Nunavut, which links down through the Northwest Territories and into Alberta, and Le Port de Montréal. The second Narrows in British Columbia, which frees up additional exports. And very importantly, action, not words, but action on carbon capture and storage. These projects would build on recent progress that we've made on high-speed rail between Quebec and Ontario, an integrated electricity system for Nova Scotia and New Brunswick. Nous avons une occasion unique de développer rapidement ces corridors afin qu'ils soient efficaces, résilients et tournés vers l'avenir. Our vision is one where goods, services, and workers can move seamlessly from coast to coast to coast, d'un océan à l'autre. By harmonizing regulations, by enhancing labor mobility, we can create that truly open and one Canadian market that Canadians are demanding. That will reduce costs for our businesses, it will increase affordability for our consumers, it will unlock new opportunities, higher paying jobs for Canadians. Je suis convaincu qu'en travaillant ensemble, nous pouvons développer et bâtir une économie canadienne plus interconnectée et plus résiliente. Because Canadians are strongest when we're united. Choisissons de bâtir un Canada fort. Merci beaucoup, and I'll be pleased to take your questions.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Merci, Monsieur le Premier ministre. Nous allons prendre une quinzaine de minutes de questions. We'll take about 15 minutes of question. First question, Global News.
Hi, Mr. Carney. Mackenzie Gray with Global News. You talked about nation building and energy corridors. Is the federal government willing to build an oil and gas pipeline similar to what Mr. Trudeau did with TMX?
Well, I think what the spirit of what we're doing as First Ministers and what we're doing as the federal government is creating a framework so that the private sector will be building these projects. And I think part of the reason, if I may, that the federal government with TMX became involved is in part because of uncertainty about the regulatory environment, the authorities and the permitting that was required. So from an action perspective, coming together with consensus, moving quickly on approvals, maintaining standards, but moving quickly on approvals. In other words, not duplicating approvals. We can create an environment where the taxpayers' money is not at risk, but private money is building not just pipelines in that case, but cross-border electricity interties, something we discussed at length as First Ministers, so that clean electricity is moving across borders. And then we're building out an energy grid across this country. En français, ce qui est important, c'est de créer une cadre de réglementation qui est claire, qui est simple, qui n'est plus duplicatif, comme était le cas quand le TMX a été bâti par le gouvernement fédéral. Et le fédéral devait le faire, selon moi, à cause d'incertitude. Cette situation d'incertitude. Alors, avec des changements qui nous mettons en place à partir de maintenant au fédéral, on peut relier au secteur privé beaucoup plus que le fédéral. D'accord.
When you mentioned those nation-building projects, you talked about rail that's going to cost the federal government tens of billions. So just to clarify, your position is that your government would not build or spend federal tax dollars to build an oil and gas plant?
Well, the position is not black and white. So it's not only this, only that. So for example, with respect to the TGV, the high-speed rail, there is an overall cost estimate for that project. There will be some federal participation, capital participation, but there will also be private capital at risk. So it's not, that is a case of a partnership, and the details of that partnership are being worked out in the coming years. And I can assure you that I will be paying close attention to how that is developed so that it's the most effective financing framework. With respect to, and I'm going to speak in terms of energy, cross-border energy, of forms of energy, including critical metals and minerals, which are a form of energy just earlier stage. First and foremost, what we're looking to do is to provide, as I said a moment ago, the frameworks to provide greater certainty, end duplication, create a sense of urgency that is required by the crisis. And sometimes, I actually didn't mention, but I'm going to mention again, we are in a crisis, not of our own making, but that is the case now. And we need to come together and focus on it, which is what First Ministers were doing today, and I salute them for it. And by doing this, the vast majority of investment dollars and risk is going to be borne by the private sector, and rewards, of course, by the private sector. But I'm not going to rule out any federal participation in any possibility down the road. I mean, it's possible, but the emphasis is on private construction. Thank you.
Good evening, Prime Minister CARNEY. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News. You appeared to suggest yesterday that you're open to moving away from the federal government's emissions cap, while your Environment Minister said that the cap will remain in place. Can you explain what your approach will be to the emissions cap, and specifically how it will be determined and what will inform your decision?
Well, there's two things, or several things here. First, I'm a pragmatist, so I'm focused on, as the government is, on getting emissions down from the production and transportation of conventional oil and gas. Okay, that's good for the environment. It ultimately will be good for the competitiveness of those producers and the distribution of that. So that's the objective, is to get down. Now, there is a role for an emissions cap. And again, emissions cap, not a production cap, but an emissions cap. I know you didn't say it, but just to be clear, because some twisted. There is a role for an emissions cap within that. But what's required in order to get those emissions down, the emissions intensity down of the production that we can see growing, particularly if Canadian oil and gas is displacing American oil and gas that we're importing right now in Eastern Canada. What's required is investment. Investment in carbon capture and storage technology, investment in reducing methane, fugitive methane, methane flame, other aspects, etc. What's required is investment. And what happened in, I can't remember where the room is, whether it was there or over there, somewhere around here where the room was, is, and what I was referring to earlier, what the federal government is doing, is putting in place the framework so that that investment is going to happen more quickly. So my focus, and where I took my response the other day, is around how are we going to make that investment happen. So the cap is there. The issue is getting the investments down. How are we going to get them down? I'm focused on that. We're making progress in unlocking that. We need to continue to work on it.
U.S. President Donald Trump claims that he totally changed you and your party's fortunes. Is he interfering in our election? And since he repeated the 51st state comment about Canada, does this mean that a meeting with Trump or a phone call is off the table?
Canadians are going to decide who their next government is going to be. I trust Canadians to make those decisions. We'll have, I'm sure, a robust election campaign, and Canadians will make the choice. No foreign leader is going to determine who's best. One of the factors is going to be, in my judgment, who is going to be best for Canada in the negotiations with the Americans, which will come, but they're, from my perspective, they're not going to come until we get the respect we deserve as a sovereign nation. By the way, this is not a high bar. This is not a high bar to say we will sit down as a sovereign nation and have this negotiation, but also that we will have a comprehensive discussion. Not a discussion about one-off tariffs, the latest initiative, but a comprehensive discussion of the economic relationship and the security relationship, which is also in the interests of the United States. So the interference, I'll leave that to one side. The requirements for the negotiations are clear. We're ready. Last point I would make, which is the most important point, and I've said it before, but I'll keep repeating it. We can't control what's said in an Oval Office spray, I think it's called, scrum, we would say. We can't control that. What we can control are the types of issues we talked about today as First Ministers and what's behind that. That investment, that building the Canadian economy, that will give us far more than we could lose from American trade actions. Now, of course, in the end, America is going to lose from American trade actions. And that's one of the reasons why I'm confident that there will be that discussion with the appropriate amount of respect and the breadth. And I'm ready for it anytime they're ready. Tout en français, c'est beaucoup de le faire. Je suis prêt. Je suis prêt. Et puis je serai les enjeux. Alors, pourriez-vous... OK. En ce qui concerne les commentaires de M. le Président, c'est intéressant, mais c'est intéressant, mais absolument pas décisif pour notre élection. Les Canadiens, les Canadiennes vont décider le prochain gouvernement, qui est le prochain gouvernement de notre pays. Alors, c'est simple. Je suis absolument confiant de ça. Autre chose. Comme j'ai dit plusieurs fois, nous sommes dans une crise. Hein? Nous sommes dans une crise économique. Et il faut distinguer entre des choses qu'on peut contrôler et qu'on ne peut pas. On ne peut pas contrôler les commentaires de M. le Président ou les tweets ou les truths de M. le Président, tout cela, mais on peut contrôler et nous doit contrôler notre destin économique. Et la discussion qui vient d'arrêter, la discussion des premiers ministres, concentrée sur les grands enjeux pour renforcer et d'augmenter notre économie.
Bonjour, M. Carney, Olivier Boissé de TVA. Vous avez nommé Mark Wiseman sur votre conseil des relations Canada-États-Unis. Il est cofondateur de l'initiative du siècle qui a fait pression sur le gouvernement pour obtenir 100 millions de personnes au Canada d'ici 2100. On a vu les impacts des seuils élevés d'immigration sur les services, sur le logement, même sur la capacité d'intégration au Québec. Je me demande, dans le contexte